What's going on, everyone? Today is November 7th, 2023. I am Anthony Santini, joined with
Eric Wilson.
and this is the Invested in Hockey podcast. We are going to be talking about everything in the NHL and what was the last week of hockey, and pretty much having you guys join us on this ride of what has been the NHL season and kind of how exciting it's been, and starting us off with the Vancouver Canucks and a good Canadian team that's found a role this year in their division and looking to make a long run this season.
Yeah, first of all, what an exciting Canadian matchup last night. I don't think anyone could predict how that game was going to go. I think we had 3 goals in the first period. It was already 2-1 for the Canucks after the first, and it was just like one of those games where you're on the couch and you're excited to watch. What did you think of it?
I thought it was a pretty good game. I mean, obviously enjoyable watching a high-scoring game like that. You got a lot of players that are kind of finding the score sheet. I know Draisaitl scored last night, and I believe McDavid was held scoreless.
Yeah, second game in a row.
I don't think he had an assist either.
No apples either.
No, which is pretty interesting for him because a player like McDavid, you see, like last season he plays a random game against Vancouver and he picks up 2 apples, and that's kind of what forms a 150-point season for a player like of his caliber. But yeah, no, Vancouver keeping him off the score sheet and goes to show how good of a goaltender Demko is.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing to say is right before the game, they were talking about Quinn Hughes being on pace for, I think, 130 points. And they were saying, is he going to get to 100? A few of them said yes. A few of them said no. And then he puts up 3 points to make him on pace for probably 145, I want to say, which obviously is pretty incredible. But what's his ceiling? What do you think?
I think ceiling's always tough to talk about when you talk about a player, especially a defenseman, because you never know what a season has in store for a defenseman. But he's been playing really well this season. He has 20, let's just double check this, 20 points so far.
Wow.
That's great. 5 goals and 15 assists, and he's plus 16 on the season. That's insane.
Yeah, talk about power play, not even counting the plus minus. I mean, he's been lights out. I think like one thing we just got to say is whoever decided that he was the captain, it looks great, looks really clever.
Yeah,
I mean, especially because the way Elias Pettersson's playing, it's almost like it worked out perfectly, and people are going to hate regardless, and it somehow worked out perfectly, right?
Well, that's the disappointing part is everyone always has an opinion, and no matter what, management knows who they have in their locker room and who's the leader, and you don't have to be the best player on the ice to be a leader in the dressing room. We see that in a couple organizations. Just as an example, we know John Tavares isn't the most talented player. They got Austin Matthews on their team, and I guess, you could say William Nylander, but those players aren't captain material in a sense. I mean, we're not in those locker rooms, but management knows, the coaches know, even the teammates know who steps up, who's not scared to say something in the locker room. And yeah, I remember when I got the notification saying that Quinn Hughes is gonna have the honors of wearing the C for the Vancouver Canucks, I was a little bit confused because you got to think with Pettersson's contract coming up, are they not like ready to take him on for a couple years? Are they not all in on him to give him the captaincy? So I was a little bit confused.
100%. I mean, now you kind of have to say we should be all in, especially if we make the playoffs this year. But looking at that lineup, it's just there's so many impressive things to talk about. We can't mention them all, but probably the last thing is Brock Besser scoring 10 goals while being on the second line.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it just shows the depth they have on that team. You have guys playing second line minutes like Phil DiGiuseppe, and it's like, does he really deserve to be there? Well, I guess he does if that line's rolling, right?
Well, that's the thing, because there's no name value on a team like this that really matters. They'll have fourth line players playing with their second line players just for the fact that some of these guys like DiGiuseppe can go out there and they're buzzing and they work hard and they make it work with whatever they have. I think their first line right now that they have Pettersson centering, Kuzmenko, and Mikheyev. And I don't know if Ilya Mikheyev is a first line player on most teams in the NHL, but I know when he was on the Leafs, do you know who his line mates were? I'm not exactly
Matthews
sure.
And I want to say Matthews and Willie.
Was he playing on that first line?
He was for a bit, yeah.
Really?
And then he eventually obviously moved down, but
yeah, I guess even when you look at someone like a line like that, Matthews and Willie, or Matthews and Marner, kind of you could pair them up with whatever third player you want. You see that they've been using them with Yarncrook a little bit this year, but Yeah, I guess it's working for Mikheyev, and maybe Pedersen and Kuzmenko could be that 1-2 punch that Vancouver could build around for the next couple years. Wrapping it up with the Vancouver topic, just 3 wins against the Oilers this year. They faced them 3 times, beating them all 3 times by a pretty substantial amount. And you look at this Oilers organization, and for me, I am pressing the panic buttons. There's red sirens in the dressing room. I am personally not interested in any more takes saying that they could win the President's Trophy. They could win the Stanley Cup. I don't know if they'll have a push in the playoffs anymore. I don't know.
I'm going to counter that. I'm going to stick to what I said last podcast where you can't hit the panic button. Even if we were 20 games in, you still can't hit the panic button just because we know what the worst case scenario is for the Oilers, and that would be losing Connor McDavid or losing Leon Draisaitl. At the end of the day, they're going to lose a goalie. Obviously, we just heard the big news of Jack Campbell a few minutes ago before we recorded this, but you can't hit the panic button, and it's just because we know they can turn on the Jets.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Eric mentioned, for everyone that might be wondering what happened to Jack Campbell, but just 10 minutes ago, it seems that Jack Campbell has been placed on waivers, and it looks like they will be sending him down to the minors. So maybe a situation that we saw outside of hockey with Alex Manoah, where they sent him down to try and get some reps with the minor league team. And it's really weird because when we were watching Campbell play on the Leafs, he looked so good, and they took him on a little bit of that what's it called, that playoff series that they had against Tampa Bay. They took them to 7 games, I believe, and Jack Campbell looked really good. I mean, me personally, looking at him when he went to Edmonton, signed that big contract, I thought he was going to be the goalie of their future, but obviously that's not panning out too well for them.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is maybe the most disastrous start for goalies in the NHL. I think we could argue it's just there's so many guys that are being hated on because of their play, and there's obviously a reason for it. I mean, you look at stats, it's pretty ridiculous. I don't know. It's so hard to talk about because it's early, but yeah.
Yeah, like you were saying, it's early, and you were talking about the 20 games before. It's weird to kind of put a big stamp saying that these guys are written off. I know that you want to say that the Oilers are going to be fine. I know you want to say that they're still a contender for the Stanley Cup, but me personally, I just can't really put them in that conversation right now with a team like Boston that's just winning games, finding ways to win in the most ridiculous ways. And when your best players aren't contributing offensively, I guess you could say McDavid with only 2 goals so far this season isn't as much of an offensive contribution as it was last year, and you could pretty much say it's been a little bit underwhelming. It's tough to be confident in this team.
Oh, exactly. And honestly, outscoring the other team's one thing and winning games is another thing. You can only outscore the other team for so long, right? You can only win 6-4 games so much. Like you were saying about the Bruins, they're 10-1-1, and I think in every single win this year, they've allowed 2 goals or less, which just shows, yes, they're outscoring them, but it's not a 6-5 game. They're winning 3-2 because they know they might not have the best offense in the league, but when you have a good goalie, good defense, and a good team overall, with a great coach like Jim Montgomery, you're getting the job done. They got the job done last night. So.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. Offense wins games, defense wins championships. I love that. Always love that phrase growing up, and stand by it for sure. But yeah, it looks like Jay Woodcroft's job could be on the line, and if everything turns to that, it could be a little bit of a disastrous adventure that the Oilers are in. But a team right now that is definitely going through a little bit of the wildfires, the Ottawa Senators, and just a couple days ago there was news that Pierre Dorion has been fired.
Pretty interesting news. I don't really know what to take from it yet, just because we haven't seen enough from the Sens, especially against like solid hockey teams where they're like getting blown out, because they haven't been, right? Like they've still been scoring goals. They've been losing games by maybe 2, 3, 4 even, but I don't see as big of a concern for the Sens, just because the expectations should not be that high, and the only reason they are is because people are so excited about what they can do in the future, right? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's a great explanation for why everyone's so excited to be an Ottawa Senators fan. You know, our buddy George is so excited, but the issue is people might get a little bit ahead of themselves. When you look at, I mean, heck, any hockey fan looks at a team that has Stutzel, Norris, Batherson, Kachuk, Shabbat, Sanderson, who they just signed to a massive deal. Corpusalo was a little bit, I know fans were a little bit optimistic to maybe him finding himself as a top 10, top 15 goaltender in this league, but he really hasn't panned out so far. So, yeah, it is definitely exciting. And when you don't see the results happen very quickly, you almost want to see it rush. It can get frustrating,
Yeah.
and that's what we saw in that Brady Kachuk interview the other day.
It's so easy to lose patience, and I mean, like, of course, when you're Kachuk and you're being interviewed all the time, you're gonna get a little frustrated. I think he was speaking from truth though, and he honestly was saying like, it's not fun getting booed, right? It's not. But guess what? When you don't win hockey games,
Yeah.
why would you be a happy fan base leaving the rink, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you got to deal with that, right? Whether you're a hockey player or a coach.
Yep.
We've seen the frustrations boil over. You could even say McDavid's frustration yesterday wasn't frustration, but whatever it was, right? They're humans. They're going to get frustrated, and definitely not the start we want from Ottawa. I really hope Korpisalo can turn it around. I do think if he turns it around, the Sens will turn it around. I don't think it's a big equation here. I think Korpisalo is kind of the real deal here if he can turn it around.
Yeah, going back to what we were talking about before, offense wins games, defense wins championships, and having a goaltender will for sure win you a Stanley Cup. That is good. And like you said, if Korpisalo can really turn it on, maybe so can the Ottawa Senators. But going back to that interview, because I just found it so substantial, and I liked your little segment you talked about right there, was you have to answer these questions. You have to answer it appropriately. It can be frustrating, but from a fan's perspective, I totally agree with Brady. He basically broke it down, and for those who are listening, the Ottawa Senators were booed off the ice after losing. I don't remember who it was to. This was like two or three nights ago. I don't remember, but maybe no, I don't remember. They lost a couple nights ago, and Brady was pretty much asked about the fans booing, and he came out and said, "Listen, you don't turn your back on us, the players. If you're real fans," he obviously didn't say if you're real fans, but he said it in a way that said, if you're real fans of the Ottawa Senators, you need to be with us when we're losing. You need to be with us in these hard times. You don't boo us. We're out there. We're trying our hardest, is what he said. We're trying. We're working hard. Everyone's working towards this common goal. Cheer us on. We need your help. We're at home. Don't boo us. It already happens enough at these opposing rinks. So yeah, it goes to show that Brady Kachuk still bought on this team, and if he were to just give up and say, you know what, yeah, boo us, we lost, yep, sucks, next game, but
yeah, it's a work in progress. Pretty much, at least what I'm hearing from you too is like, again, who knows? 3 years down the road doesn't mean there's going to be green flags the whole time, right? They could have struggles 3 years down the road. Go on a 5-game losing streak. You're going to have to deal with it. So they're dealing with some hardships now that are going to help them be stronger in the future. And when you have a guy like Brady Kachuk being locked in for like 5 years, it helps a lot. And he's a big voice, and I think like he needs to keep being vocal. You maybe want a guy like Tim Stutzel to be a little more vocal too, but you got to come together as a team and really figure out where you can be better.
Yeah, having those voices in the locker room is obviously the first step in turning this boat around that they're in. And like we were talking about with the Oilers, having the captain step up and play a huge role. But yeah, the search for a new coach for the Ottawa Senators could start. I don't know exactly what their thought process is. We've heard a lot of NHL insiders like Elliot Friedman say, it could be a good idea to get a new coach. Fans might want a new coach. Everyone's so quick to blame the coach, but if there's not another option that you can say, okay, this new coach coming in with this said system might be beneficial to our program, what's the point of getting rid of the coach? I kind of relate that to management keeping Sheldon Keefe on, because if they don't see a better option in the offseason than Sheldon Keefe, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And
exactly, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. That's honestly the best way to sugarcoat it, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to our next segment is the most underrated wins that we saw in the last week, and a couple young teams against a couple of the big teams. And I know Eric wants to take this segment and run away with it, so here we go.
Yeah, honestly, for anyone who likes to watch a full day of hockey, nothing beats watching that 10 p.m. game and seeing a score you maybe weren't expecting. I think for this first game we're going to talk about the Blues versus the Devils. This one was actually, I think, a 4 o'clock game or a 6 o'clock game. It was at an odd time. And so I think a lot of people probably had it on the TV. Maybe they're cooking dinner or whatever. But despite the Jack Hughes injury, I don't really want to talk about that yet, just because we're going to be talking about that in the coming weeks when he maybe hopefully returns. Who knows when he's going to return? But to see a team like the Blues beat the Devils pretty much shows anyone can beat anyone. It's pretty much who wants it. Obviously, you're going to have those bounces. There was so many chances where I think Timo Meier could have buried one in the third there. They had some really good chances. I think it was Meier who just shoveled it right over the net, threw it in the crowd. They were down by one, but the big player for the Blues was Kevin Hayes, and it was nice to see a veteran like that kind of look good against one of those young teams like the Devils. And honestly, I don't think St. Louis is going to have a lot of wins this year, but a win like that just shows anyone can beat anyone. You can't really count out a team, whether they have some grizzled veterans or whatnot, right? So I don't know what you think of that game.
Yeah, no, definitely, like you said, Blues versus Devils, big game. Kevin Hayes with first career hat trick, or no, he had 2 goals.
2 goals, 1 apple.
But I remember watching the game, and the funniest part was the announcer said exactly what I was thinking. It's always a funny feeling when that happens, right? It's like you say something or you think something, and the announcer says it right after, and you're like, wow, I am a hockey guru. I know everything, you know what I mean? But, yeah, no, the 4-1 goal was from Robert Thomas, I believe, and they were in that offensive zone, and they were kind of fiddling around with it, looking for Hayes to get him that hat trick. But, yeah, Robert Thomas ends up putting it in and instantly looks at Hayes and pretty much like apologizes, throws his hands up. So it was a little bit funny, and the announcer goes, that will be the first goal that the players ever apologized to a teammate for scoring. Something that I said in my head, and I was kind of laughing, but little stuff like that's always...
You hate to be harsh, but he had his chance to bury that hat-trick goal.
He did.
I think it was from like center ice. Like, obviously you're not going to expect the guy to hit the net all the time, but he had his chance. He had the chance on the rebound. Obviously apologizing in hockey is pretty funny. It happens. We've seen it with Makar when he got that penalty and he apologized.
Yeah,
and he tried to reverse the call.
Did they reverse the call?
I don't know if they did. I don't think they did.
But I don't know. I know what you're talking about. That was like last season.
I mean, if you're his teammates, you're gonna be a little mad, but it's hockey. It's like it's nice to see a bit of smiles, a bit of personality when the game's out of hand. It's 20 seconds left, 4-1. It kind of moves us into this other Ducks Vegas game. So honestly, the idea of counting a team out was pretty much evident in this game. I don't know what you think, but if I ever see the Vegas Golden Knights up by 2 goals in the third, I'm ready to turn the TV off.
Yeah, it's something weird, and a statement that I always say is there's nothing more dangerous than a young team, especially when they could band together, work together, and find a role. And this Anaheim Ducks team has been really interesting this year. There's been a couple storylines, and they're not a team like the Ottawa Senators, like a massive market like that where little things are blown out of proportion. But just to talk about a couple stories, Frank Vatrano with so far what is a career year, I believe 9 goals, couple apples this year, and he had a 3-point night the other night, or 2-point night the other night. To just kind of pair that along with a couple good games that have been played, and Mason McTavish stepping up, playing well on that second-line center role, kind of flipping back and forth with Leo Carlsson when he's been doing that little system that they've set up for him. But yeah, no, the Anaheim Ducks are kind of on their way of the rebuild. I'm not too optimistic about them making the playoffs, but it definitely gives some of those core pieces like Zegras, Carlson, McTavish, guys that will be there most likely 3 to 4 years down the road to kind of look back on and say, hey, remember when we did this? Let's work towards that. This worked, that didn't work. So
yeah, no, for sure. And honestly, when you look back a year ago, you had a guy like Zegras who was almost like the only offensive threat, it felt like. And so you'd have Zegras on the ice, like almost double shifting in the third if they were down. And then you can just see how the tables turn. I think he was pointless in that game. You have a guy like Mason McTavish step up, score a nasty goal. And it's really nice to see like those new faces contribute. Because again, you don't want to see like one guy almost carrying a team for a few years when he's not even a superstar, you call it, right? So it's really nice to see like a team come together. Obviously they beat a Devils team who was a little banged up, but like a win's a win. So sorry, a Vegas team who had Logan Thompson in net rather than Aiden Hill. But hey, if you're Logan Thompson, you can't win them all, right? So I think that was his first or second loss. But nice to see for sure.
Yeah, no, nice to see for sure. And looking at this top 6 right now, who they have is Zegras on the left, centered by Leo Carlsson, and Troy Terry, who we know is a offensive weapon. A couple years ago, he had that 30-plus goal season. Did he
Yeah,
hit
I want to
40?
say he almost hit 40.
I think he did hit 40.
Yeah. I'll
He was
pull
on
that up
fire
for
that
sure.
year.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was on fire. I don't know if you want to fact check that. But then that second line, McTavish centering Vetrano and Ryan Strome on the right. And just some of the key depth pieces that they added this year were Alex Killorn and Radko Gudas in the offseason. And two of the maybe not flashiest players when you look at NHL news in the summer months. But when it comes that November, December, February time where you could call it the quote-unquote dog days of the NHL and teams are kind of finding out, are we going to make a playoff run? Are we going to hold back? You have players like Killorn and Gudas that could kind of propel players, teach them things no matter what position a team's in.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to look pretty, right? We're going to have some viewers who are going to say, oh, Killorn's not depth, Gudison's in depth. But at the end of the day, a player's a player. If they play their role, that's doing their job. That's providing the depth you need. Just to go back to that fact check, Terry had 37 goals in 75 games. Mm-hmm. So let's say he played 82, he probably could have hit 40, but...
and that was that year. I don't think Zegras was playing with him.
I don't think Zegras was playing it. I think, honestly, I guess it would have been Zegras' rookie year.
Because Zegras played 20, it was 15 to 20 seasons and games, 15 to 20 games in that season there.
Yeah,
it was near the end.
And honestly, Terry deserved that contract, no matter what anyone wants to say. Even if it's a lot of money, he deserved it. And that's good for the Ducks.
Yep. Yeah, good for the Ducks, a young team that is on their way to 2 years away from being 2 years away, and a team that is maybe 5 years away from being 5 years away.
10 years away from being 10 years away.
I don't know. I don't know what this team is, but the San Jose Sharks just, oof.
In shambles.
Yeah.
In shambles.
Sharks
go
in
check
shambles.
out our Instagram graphic now. Go have a look, but... they're in shambles. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, looking at the lineup, there's not a lot of... I don't know. I just run into a wall when I think about this team because there's not a lot of bright spots. Even looking at a couple of the players in the AHL, I know they have some players that are, could make an impact in the next couple of years, but Eklund hasn't really looked great. We know Bordlow was sent back down, and it's just a little bit disappointing. Not a lot of youth impact, and losing losing 2 games back to back, letting in 10 goals is just
it's terrible. It's that's when you can obviously get a boo and be like, I understand why I'm getting booed.
Yeah.
One interesting thing is you look at that second line. Hoffman, Granlund, Duclair. If I gave you that line 4 or 5 years ago, you'd be like, "Oh, that's a really good second line, right?" We remember when Granlund was traded for Fiala 1-for-1, and we were like,
what?
Granlund's nasty.
Yeah.
I can't believe it, but it almost feels like when Arizona was taking on all those older guys like Kessel back in the day, and you were just sending them off to Arizona. It feels like it's almost like San Jose's in that spot now.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, I don't know if a lot of players have a role. Looking at Thomas Hertl, who could be a solid second line player on a championship team. I know he's not a guy that's flashy. He's gonna put up 35 plus goals and he's gonna be your $11 million guy, but a guy with not the craziest contract in the world that could play some really good second line minutes. If you're him right now, how do you not say to yourself, okay, I need to go into the GM's office and I need to ask for a trade right now because I've been on this team for 6+ years now?
Yeah.
At least.
Probably
I believe
8, yeah.
6, 7, 8 years. I've seen no benefit in being here the last 2.
Yeah.
Trade me to a contender.
And it's interesting, right? Because I think I fully agree with you. It would be a guy like Hertl who goes to the office, figures something out because you have the captain in Logan Couture, I believe, right now, right? And he's just coming off the IR, I think, in a couple games. But he's a guy where I can say, okay, they got to keep Couture to at least help the young guys develop. At least have a locker room with not just randos, right? You need a guy like Couture to stay. Everyone else is pretty new. Even Barabonov's only been there for 3 years or 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Zadina's first years now, Kunin's second years now. LeBonc's the only guy who's kind of been there with Hertl for the 6 years, right?
Yep.
And so the question I want to kind of address is how is this going to impact the development of a guy like William Eklund? or a guy like, it's really just William Eklund right now, but
Yeah, exactly.
In the future, our guy Thomas Bordalo, who we're a
Bordeaux,
big
yeah.
fan of, like, how is this going to impact their like love for hockey even? What do you think?
Well, it's weird because you're traveling 82 games, and I don't know if Eklund's going to play 82 games, but let's just say he does. You're traveling for 82 games, you're going back and forth, you're missing family time, you're missing time with your friends. Just to go to these arenas and lose 10-1, like, it can obviously be mentally demanding for sure. You go home and you lose, and your fans boo you off the ice. It could suck. And as a rookie like Eklund, a young guy with being held scoreless for a couple games, it could be tough. I think when you look at him, he's a player that is right on the fringe of AHL stardom and NHL mid minutes. I don't know if he should be playing on that first line. It could be a tough ask for a young guy like that. But if me personally, I'm sending him back to the AHL. I'm going to let him flourish. I'm going to let San Jose rot right to 32nd place in the league.
For sure.
Chase that first pick.
Now the question is, I don't. You'll know the rules maybe a little better than me, but I think Eklund's played too many games to be just sent down. I think he'd have to be put on waivers, because I think he played like 10 games last season, so he'd be at over 20 or something, right?
Did he play 10 games last season?
He definitely did. He played at least 10, but
I'm gonna check that.
Yeah, if you want to check that, it's just really interesting seeing a guy like Mike Hoffman on that team, who, like, we've seen him go through some pretty bad slumps on, like, even Florida. He didn't end too well on Florida. He didn't look the best on the Blues. Like, he had his moments where it was like speedy Mike Hoffman, but it's sad, yeah.
Yeah, so in 2021, Eklund played 9 games in the NHL. In 22-23, he played 8. So prior to this season, he has 17 total games played. And it looks in that 22-23 season, he was sent down to the AHL for 54 games, where he had 41 points in 54 games. So a pretty good showing from a player like that in the AHL.
Yeah, and I don't know what Eklund's outlook's going to be, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 to 3 years we're talking about how William Eklund's leading that team in points. Right? Again, that's something that we could see. I don't expect Eklund to be like a 40-goal scorer in the next 3 years, but I do think, like, points are points. If you can get points and you're on the top power play, top line, you should be able to do something.
Yeah, exactly. Giving the youth the opportunity to kind of go out there and flourish. And to move on to our next segment, I know Eric wants to take this one away. He has a couple goaltenders for us that he thinks should be in an NHL uniform this year for a contender slash, what do you want to say?
We'll say a contender slash mediocre team.
Yeah.
So first off, Matt Sogard for the Ottawa Senators. Honestly, I hate to be negative here, but to bring it up, Philip Gustafson's gone now. There's opportunity in that. He was the AHL's goalie of the month for October, and he played 21 games over the past 2 seasons. So pretty exceptional getting AHL goalie of the month. It says something. It says that you might make the NHL one day. I don't know exactly how old he is. I want to say he's around like 23, 24, but he's got 3 wins, 1 shutout, .931 save percentage for Belleville, which is crazy. It's just a question of, like, is that going to affect Korpisalo even more to call up Sogard, give him some games against some good teams? Or are you going to call Sogard up and play him against, like, a team like San Jose just to get him experience, right? Yeah. I obviously the AHL matters, and they'd love to have him there if he's going to be the best AHL goalie. But secondly, Jesper Wallstedt, he's a first-rounder for the Wild a couple seasons ago. And the question is, like, the Wild have Fleury and Gustafsson, obviously, but they're going to struggle at some point. One of them is. I don't know how injury trouble is going to look, but obviously if Fleury and Gustafsson are healthy, then there's not really a reason to call up Wallstedt. And I'll just finish off with the third here. David Riddick, a veteran. Right now he's playing for the Ontario Reign, but the LA Kings are probably one of the shakiest teams in the league, I'd say. Like, if I'm going to bet on a team not to make the playoffs, I think, like, the Kings are a team you can say, okay, there's not that, like, consistency through the lineup. There's not the consistency over the last 5 years to say that, like, they're a playoff team. So I've always liked David Riddick. I think he's been through his fair share of teams, but I think, like, he's proven he can play at the NHL level. And if Talbot starts to struggle, if Copley starts to struggle, right? Like, you got to call up Riddick.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to go over those guys just because at the end of the day, these young NHL goaltenders in Sogard, especially Wallstead, they're just a few of the guys who are going to be good in the next few years. So.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Giving any goaltender a chance at, to take the cake. We saw that with Joseph Wall. Samsonov's been struggling the past couple games, and Wall's just kind of been that, anchor of support for the Leafs where they could kind of fall back on. And we saw he hasn't let a goal in I guess he let one goal in 2 games relief of Samsonov. He's let 1 goal in.
Yeah.
In relief, because it was 6-5 yesterday.
6-5, yeah. I mean, honestly,
4-1 when Sammy was pulled. So, yeah, a pretty interesting stat, and it looks like these young guys, for the Leafs. Just to kind of finish up on that topic, talking about goaltenders, it's weird these young guys for the Leafs play so well against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We've seen Wall come in, he wins 2 games, and then Matthew Nyes has 3 goals now against the Tampa Bay Lightning this season.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah, nice seeing the positives in the youth. Obviously, there's going to be lots of errors, a lot of guys being sent down, called up, for sure.
Yeah, so pretty much wrapping us off, we will chat about Eric's predictions for the week. And, we took a look before the pod just to see how Eric did, and we were a little bit disappointed to see that the first 4 games were picked incorrectly. And
I don't know what to say. Again, anyone can beat anybody, but I can't put all my faith in the Toronto Maple Leafs and act like they're going to win 2 games, one against LA, one against Tampa. I'll let you take it from here, but
yeah, I don't know. Me, bro, I hope that you could turn this bus around. The first week didn't go well. The second week didn't go well. The third week didn't go well for you. 3 for 7 last week. I want you to go 7 for 7. I want to see it. I want to see the educated guesses. I know you're the hockey. You're the fantasy guy, the self-proclaimed fantasy guy.
For sure.
So we're going to start us off. The Ottawa Senators playing on the road against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay, you got to take the Leafs. There's no questions asked. We're going 1 for 1.
I don't know, man. I don't know. The Ottawa, they have fire under their butt right now,
Not with Korpisalo, though. There's no way. There's no way. You're going to put Wall in net, and he's going to play well for another 30 games, like I said. Sorry, not 30 games. He's going to play well for the next 30 games that the Leafs play. Yep. Of course, Sammy's going to have to get some starts, too, but you're going with the Leafs here. We're starting hot.
Yep. Next up, we got the Minnesota Wild visiting the New York Rangers.
Oh, makes me think of Puck Doku and Ryan Reeves. He's played for both those teams. So, anyways, you know what? I'm going to go with the Rangers here. They're a better team. We're going 2 for 2 already. So,
all right, perfect.
We'll come back to this.
All right. November 10th, we have, and this one should be free. I mean, I don't see you going out on a limb here, but the Vegas Golden Knights hosting the San Jose Sharks.
Okay, I actually, you're going to laugh, but the San Jose Sharks are going to get their first win.
Oh, no.
The Sharks will beat the Vegas Golden Knights, and it goes back to that Game 7 win where they beat Vegas. The Sharks will beat the Vegas Golden Knights, and, it sounds crazy, but, again, I'm making educated guesses here. You're going to laugh. You're going to come back to it, but let's go to the next one.
I need you to put this one on the record. I need you to say it again. I need to hear it.
Okay. The San Jose Sharks will head to Vegas and beat the Vegas Golden Knights.
Oh, boy. Okay. I can't wait to see when this one ends 7-2. All right. So November 11th, we have the Dallas Stars against the Winnipeg Jets.
I'm going to go with the Stars here. I think they bounce back after that tough loss to the Bruins. I mean, anytime you play the best team in the NHL, you should lose, which obviously they lost to Bruins. But, they're going to beat the Jets.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about them next week. Dallas looked pretty good against Boston.
Dallas looked good. Wyatt Johnston looked amazing. Yep. And we'll have to talk about those young Bruins as well in the next podcast.
Yep. November 12th, 2 Canadian teams going at it, Vancouver Canucks and Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, we're going Vancouver all day here. That Habs team's struggling. So.
Yep. Sunday, we got the New York Islanders visiting the Edmonton Oilers.
Oh, man, you're killing me with these poverty teams, dude. Honestly, I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers.
All right, some pretty good picks for Eric. We will revisit those next week, and hopefully he can go 7 for 7, especially with that bold take. I hope at this point you rather go 0 for 7 than 6 for 7. And you lose that.
Hey,
San
it's not the
Jose
Sharks one that'll lose. I promise you that. The Sharks are going to win. They're going to have some firepower. I think William Eklund might score a goal, so who knows?
Yeah. But, that's pretty much it for this week of hockey. I would like to just shout out the Toronto Sports Card Expo that's happening this weekend, Thursday to Sunday. If you are in the area, leave a comment. Come meet up with us. We will be there all weekend, just kind of checking out some hockey cards, talking sports with people. But, yeah, thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yep.
And I'm Anthony. That is
Eric.
And, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.